Today on the 1012 podcast, we continue rankings week here on the show. Adam Eaton of Sons of UCF joins me. We are ranking all 16 Big 12 football head coaches for the 2024 season, 16 through 1. I want to hear your thoughts. You can email us 1012podcast@gmail.com after the show, during the show. Hit us up on Twitter. I want to hear your thoughts from this. Absolutely fantastic. We're going all the way through Thursday. So join us on YouTube Live. Great conversation going on. We've got another great show tomorrow. Enjoy this one.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the 1012, the live podcast this week that covers all 16 teams in the Big 12 Conference. We are the flagship show of the 1012 Network, the podcast that covers, or the network that covers all 16. I've thrown this off. Like, I'm so used to doing this differently, and once I start changing my intro, it messes it up. 1012network.com. Y'all know it. TEN number 12, the word network, and we're partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. Thank you for joining us for Rankings Week. This is what happens when things are live. You know, stuff gets messed up. You can't go back and change it. It's okay. Off to a great start. On night 2, if you missed it last night, we did 10 most impactful transfer players in the Big 12 with Joe Broback. Great show. You can listen to it in audio form. You can watch it on YouTube. Just like tonight, for all of you who are watching tonight on YouTube, thank you very much. Feel free to hop in the comments. Let us know what we are right and wrong about. And when I say we, as you can see, it is not just myself. Very excited tonight to have one of the hosts of Sons of UCF, our UCF podcast here in the network, Adam Eaton. Adam, welcome back to the show, man.
Philip, it's an honor. It's a pleasure to rank Big 12 coaches. This was a tougher assignment than I thought it was going to be, so I can't wait to get into this. It comes off the heels of Big 12 Media Days. I had a chance to be out there, so interacted or at least heard from all of these guys, so it was quite timely to be able to do this right now. But excited to be a part of the festivities here tonight, and cannot wait to hear people yell at me when I have someone ranked in the wrong spot.
Yeah, you know what? You guys did a fantastic job out in Vegas last week at Big 12 Media Days. Tons of great coverage, great interviews, great stuff all over your social media pages, great stuff on the YouTube channel. So everybody go follow Sons of UCF everywhere. You guys do a live show every week. You've got tons of coverage, tons of episodes, tons of stuff coming out on a regular basis. Like, you guys do a lot. You've got a massive team. I love it. You guys are a fantastic UCF representative for us in the network. So I'm thrilled to have you with us tonight. We were going to have another guest as well, but he had an emergency pop up. So it's just me and Adam, and that's okay. It's okay. For those of you who were here last night or missed last night, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to start this time at 16 and go to 1 as opposed to reverse order. And so I'm going to let Adam go first, and then I will say where I have that coach. Since in this case, we're going to have the same 16 people, no variety, same 16. And I will give where I have them ranked. And that way we could talk about every coach at one time, keep this a little bit more even. I see no reason to drag this out. For those watching again, please hop in the comments. Tell us what you agree with, what you don't agree with, what we've said that's made you angry. Adam, as I said, I'm going to let you go first. At number 16, the worst coach in the Big 12.
All right, well, let me preface this. So here's how I looked at this assignment, Philip. I looked at really kind of 3 things, right? So first, I looked at just overall breadth of this coach's resume. So what have they done throughout the entirety of their career? Many of these coaches have had other stops. So I want to make sure I took into account all that. But I also want to look at their recent success. So I looked at the entirety of their record, and then the last 3 years. How have they done in the most recent 3 years? I know it's really tough year to year now with transfer portal, NIL, a lot of movement, but what's the last 3 years look like? And then the last criteria was kind of a smaller set. So think of it this way, like 40, 40, 20 in terms of how I broke this apart. But if my school had an opening tomorrow, would I want this person to be my coach? Where would I want this person? Like how excited would I be about this person becoming my coach? So 40% kind of what you've done, 40% what the last 3 years have been like, and that 20%, would I want this person as my coach? And I think that 20% covers recruiting, fundraising, media presence, right? All the things that I say, hey, this is a person that I'd want representing my school. So that's kind of the criteria I used. Again, everyone's free to use their own criteria, however they see fit, but that's how I kind of used my North Star. And so with that, without further ado, the 16th coach in the Big 12 is Brent Brennan. And for no better reason than we just don't know anything about him, right? I mean, he's got a losing overall record, 34-48 all time, 19 and 18 in his last 3 years at San Jose State. I just don't know if he's going to be a good Big 12 coach. He may be, he may not be. We don't really know yet. He's taking over a really interesting situation in Arizona. Seems like a nice enough guy, but he literally hasn't coached it down yet in the Big 12. So it's hard for me to say that he's got some sort of gravitas or he's going to have a great career. So he's got to be 16 for me, but largely because I just don't know anything about him. I have no idea if he can coach or not.
So I have Brennan at 15, one spot higher than you. So neither of us are very high on him. This definitely felt like an uninspiring hire when it was made by Arizona. We talk in coaching hires all the time about how oftentimes they will go the opposite of what was last time. If they had an offensive coach, especially the NFL, they had an offensive coach. Now they're going to go to a defensive guy. If you had a player friendly coach, you're going to go with a hard nosed guy. In getting a guy in their previous head coach, who's now at Washington, you get a guy who didn't, was outside of college football, coming from the NFL, not an Arizona guy, but he had a lot of success, but then a bigger opportunity came up and he left. And so it felt like they went with a safe guy, a guy that they thought would come in at Arizona. And if he had success, would stay at Arizona and not leave for greener pastures by bringing in an alumni in Brent Brennan, who, as you mentioned, was fine at San Jose State. And look, no one's had long-term sustained success at San Jose State. So it's hard to say, well, he actually did really good for San Jose State. We've seen coaches come in and have like a big year and then have mediocre or a lack of success. So it's not like he did anything super outlier. The last time we saw a head coach from San Jose State get hired at a then Pac-12 program was Mike McIntyre at Colorado, had one big season at Colorado, otherwise was disappointing. So, I mean, look, his best season at San Jose State was a 7-1 record during the 2020 COVID year. And as we know, you can't judge what any coach did, good or bad, by the COVID season. So look, I'm not high on him either. It feels like it was a safe and uninspired hire by Arizona. We'll see what he does. And I think it's going to be a C long-term because there's plenty of talent left on this roster from last year. You've got Noah Fafita, you've got McMillan, and I think they brought some talent in from the portal as well. So I don't want to judge him I want to be too nice to him if he has a really good year one, but I am going to give him credit if he's at least able to sustain this for his first year there.
Yeah, this just kind of felt like too new to rate for me, right? Like just not enough information to really come to a conclusion. So that's why he fell at 16. So 15 for me was interesting because I had this person's name down there and I kind of went back and forth using my criteria of what have you done, career in last 3 years. This person doesn't have anything really to show for that. It was that 20% part about what I want him to be my coach. If tomorrow my school had an opening, would I want this name? That's where I kind of teetered with him because I think I would, but I don't know enough about him. So number 15, I want Kenny Dillingham, Arizona State. Again, 3-9 in his first season. I think in talking to him at Big 12 Media Day, that's not what he expected. He talked a lot about changing a culture. We know the Herman Edwards era there was certainly a bit of a fiasco in a lot of different ways. Jaden Rashada's situation did not help, I think, a first-year coach kind of get acclimated. So I also think of it this way. Is someone's arrow pointing up or pointing down? I think this is an arrow that's pointing up. Frankly, you can't get much higher than 15. You can't get much lower than 15, I suppose. But this is one that if you and I redo this show in 24 months, he very well could be in that top 10 of Big 12 coaches. I think year one, a lot of stuff on his plate. I think he did an admirable job. I think he's got a good offensive mind. His pedigree being at Florida State, being at Oregon tells you what he can do schematically. Can he run a program yet? I don't think we know that. Again, 3-9 1 year. I don't want to give him, all the blame for that because he had to clean up a lot, but I just don't know enough about him yet to know if he can get over the hump. So Kenny Dillingham gets 15 for me.
I have him one spot higher than you, and I think it's because at 14, which again isn't like, no, this guy's gonna be great or arguing. There's not enough to judge him on, and the guy I have at 16, which you will get at some point, and I'll say who that is. I'm way more negative on. And I think there's still enough positive vibes to me around Kenny Dillingham. This was a hire everyone was really excited about at Arizona State. He came into an awful situation having to clean up the absolutely horrible mess that Herm Edwards left for him. I mean, just the scandal-ridden program. It was awful. This was a really popular hire. He was a great OC at his stops at Memphis, Auburn, Florida State, Oregon. And people were a little bit surprised that the Arizona State was able to get this guy that people thought might take a different or bigger job. I am still going to ride the high vibes to keep him at 14. He hasn't done enough bad because again, you can only hold so much against someone in their first
Yeah.
season, given what he walked into. So
Yep.
there's not as much bad as the two guys below him for me to hold against him. But I agree on there's not enough there for me to want to vault him up over the rest of the guys in this list.
Yeah, I think he's a stock rising guy. I'll also say this: he wore a maroon suit at Big 12 Media Day, and any man who can pull off a maroon suit to me gets a check mark in my book. So Kenny Dillingham goes 15. 14 was interesting because I had a couple different people here, and as I looked at records and looked at stats, I changed this a few different times. But at 14, I went with Dave Aranda. Obviously, the Baylor head coach, 23-25 overall, 21-18 at his time at Baylor. He's only had one winning year of the 4 years he's been at Baylor. There was rumors last year about him, being a fit there. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. He was at Media Day. I think he flat out said the difference is we're paying players now. It just doesn't seem like he's comfortable in some of those settings. I think he's a really smart defensive mind. And he's somebody that, again, what I wanted to be my coach based on what I've seen, I'd maybe want him to be my defensive coordinator. I don't know if I'd want him to lead my program. So I went Dave Aranda 14. There's somebody else I debated, which I'll get to in a second. But I think Aranda's record of the last couple of years and one winning season in 4 years of a Baylor program that's had some success in the past. Obviously, the Matt Rule days were probably the I don't want to mention the words Art and Briles here, but the Matt Rule days, I think, were probably the pinnacle of where Baylor could be at. So I'm going to go Dave Aranda 14.
I'm higher than you. I have him at 11. And maybe I'm putting too much stock in that 12-2 Big 12 championship season. I might be. It's a very real possibility. It's weird that there's things that we have given Aranda credit for. And obviously you guys still new as a UCF fan, newer to the Big 12 than whereas I remember his first 2 seasons more, right? Having experienced those. And I remember the Big 12 championship season. It was a fantastic season. Year 1 was tough, but it was a COVID year. We don't want to hold too much against them. And then the last 2 years have shown backwards movement. And we gave him a lot of credit after year 1 of going ahead and replacing his offensive coordinator. It wasn't going to work. We decided to move something else, bring in a new OC. We gave him a lot of credit for being willing to make changes and not just, well, we're going to stick this out because we got to be loyal. And it worked. But when you have one big season and 3 seasons that are losing records, I mean, again, outside of the 12-2 Big 12 title season, he's 11-23. Even if I take away the COVID year, he's 9-16. I might have him too high at 11 off of that Big 12 championship. I'm still holding a bit, that he can get things turned around because he has been very slow. It seems like he's been willing to make changes, but it seems like he's been very slow. Again, saying the line of, well, we're paying players now. Well, it's because they really weren't his first few years. They were one of the last few to kind of get on board with using NIL the way everyone else was to get talent and retain talent. And so it's taken him a little while. And so I still think he can have success. But this is definitely like his last chance to do it. He's either got to do it this year, or no matter how nice a guy he is. And I could sit and let him talk about college football and philosophy to me for like hours. But if he doesn't have success this year, it will be his last season in Waco.
Yeah, I agree. So I got him 14. So the guy wanted 14 originally, and I moved him around a little bit because I felt like I would be accused of perhaps playing a little bit of the rivalry card. I have Scott Satterfield at 13, the Cincinnati head coach. 75-49 overall, but again, he had a lot of those years at Louisville and App State. 16-21 the last 3 seasons. Again, that's largely Louisville. 3-9 at Cincinnati. If you look at his overall record, again, 75-49. He had 3 10-plus seasons, 10-plus win seasons at App State. Never had 10 wins at Louisville. I think things were on the outs at Louisville. I think he was kind of beginning to wear his welcome out at Louisville. The jump to Cincinnati seemed like an odd move when he made it at the time because he was already in ACC school going to Cincinnati. Obviously, Luke Fickell leaving doesn't help that situation because I think he had that thing wired. But they obviously took a step back in year 1. He has not solved the quarterback situation at Cincinnati. Emory Jones, by the way, not the answer. So 3-9 in 1 year at Cincy. And you're losing players in the portal. There seems to be a bit of a disconnect at Cincinnati. I think you're thinking about that, what that program could have been. And they were, admittedly, they were the darling probably of that new 4 class, right? They were just coming off a national opportunity in the playoff that nobody else had from the group of 5. They were probably that bell cow program. And 1 year under Satterfield, and that thing went right back down. Maybe not all his fault. I never really liked him with Louisville either, by the way. So perhaps I'm using some of that there too. So Satterfield gets 13 for me in our Big 12 coach rankings.
This is my last place.
Okay.
I am. It's going to take a lot for him to get me on board with the idea that he's going to be successful at Cincinnati. I get it. His last 4 seasons at App State, he went 40-11. He was fantastic.
Yep. He
was mediocre at best at Louisville. The point that every year we're like, is this going to be the year they get fired? Is this the year he's going to get fired? Like, he was a hot seat guy for his last 2 seasons. It's not great when a fan base is happy to see another team poach their coach. That's not like you're Cincinnati. There's an administration was trying to celebrate, like, yeah, we got our guy. It's like, yeah, you got the guy that the other school didn't want. It's one thing when schools want to get rid of OCs and DCs. When everybody wants this guy gone and you solve their problem by taking him from them, that's not a positive. I understand in year 1 it was going to be tough transitioning from the AAC up to the Big 12. It is going to be more challenging. And look, Fickell didn't leave the cupboard bare, but he didn't leave them stocked either.
Sure. Yep.
You were supposed to have a good defense. It was fine last year. Like, it was a bad year. It was not a good season. I have yet to see anything. And again, we're going to have year 2 on the field, but I have yet to see anything that makes me go, no. This is going to be okay. He's going to go in the right direction. He's going to work out. I am out on him. I've been at him since he got hired. It's going to take a lot. And maybe that's unfair. Maybe I'm not giving him as much credit for what he did at App State as I probably am to a lot of coaches higher on this list. But I wasn't inspired by the hire. I don't think it was a good hire. I don't think he's long for Cincinnati. That's a program that has had numerous head coaches that have had success. And again, I understand that's at a Big East AAC level. That's not the Big 12, but there are expectations at Cincinnati. He's going to have to get them there quickly. And I don't think he's the guy to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Thinking about almost what we talked about with Brett Brennan, right? Like, yeah, he's had past success in App State, but I mean, to your point, Phil, that was 6 years ago, 7 years ago, right? Like, college football is a completely different animal than what it was back when he was successful at App State. So can he take some of that mojo in Cincinnati? And then you think about all the things that have taken place, and with all due respect to our friends at Viva La Cats, the Cincy podcast here on the 10-12 network, who's the one player they got in the portal that you go, okay, this is the difference maker? He was specific at Big 12 Media Day, Satterfield, that he was still an open quarterback competition. Now, all the Cincy fans kind of chimed in and said, no, we know who our guy is. But if you're this late into the season and you're still not ready to declare a quarterback, you don't have a quarterback, right? So I don't know where the saving comes from. So again, am I trending up, trending down situation? I think Satterfield for me is at 13 trending down. If we did this list in 12, 24 months, A, he may not be on it. But B, if he is, he's probably at that point, to your point, kicking up the rear of this thing in that 15, 16 spot. So I got Satterfield at 13. My 12 is interesting because, again, I want to give this guy some credit because I really think he's a good coach, but I just don't know enough about it yet, and that's Willie Fritz at Houston. Now, being obviously a part of the American Conference with him at Tulane, we saw the success that Willie had at Tulane. He gets to a New Year's Six game with Tulane. He was there for 8 years. His last 3 years there, 25-14, had a lot of success. A really innovative coach offensively. They did a lot of great stuff at Tulane. They had a really dynamic running back duo that they leaned on heavily. But how does that translate to the Big 12? Is he prepared for that? I would not. I saw Tulane play a bunch. They were not a smash mouth team, right? And I think that's the biggest thing I heard this past week at Big 12 Media Day was people think this is a finesse league, and every coach is like, this is not a finesse league. This is a smash mouth, get your nose dirty. You're going to get bloodied for 4 quarters on the line of scrimmage. He was never really that kind of a coach at Tulane. He didn't have to be fair to him, right? Because that's the way the AAC was set up. B, you're coming off the Dana Holgorsen era where what's in the cupboard there anymore? What's gone? Obviously, things were not working for a while there. You've got to change an entire culture there. I think he has the ability to do so, but I just don't know that he'll have success right out of the gate. I'd love to be wrong because I really like the guy. I think he's a really good coach. I think the way his team responds to him, the way his coaches responded to him, I think was fantastic. I just don't know if he's got that yet, and I don't know what he has to play with right now. And the Fertitta money is interesting, right? Because it's always out there. So how much of a leash does Willie have before they go, this isn't working again either? They were pretty patient with Hogo, so perhaps they'll get that with Willie. So I want to have him higher. I just don't know how to justify that with some of the other coaches on this list. So I got Willie Fritz at 12.
Before I respond to that specifically, I appreciate you saying Big 12 is more smash mouth and not a finesse league, because I think the Big 12 is still struggling with the reputation of it is the spread offense. And so spread offense still means like everyone's just throwing the ball 1,000 times. No, spread offense is just the idea that you spread your players out. It doesn't mean that you're not still ground and pound. And the Big 12, as always, changes before everyone else in college football does, because now everyone's throw in the Big 12. Again, this is the year of the running back in the Big 12, loaded with running backs. You're seeing to see defenses respond to that. We're even seeing Iowa State talking about having 4 defensive linemen. Like, that is in response to a conference that wants to run the ball, and is going to be good at it this year. So I love that you said that. I think that is spot on and fantastic. And also speaks to the whole, like, no one's going to be prepared for Utah. Like, I think we're going to, Utah is going to be a tough out. I'm not trying to take credit away from Utah, but this notion that the Big 12 is a bunch of finesse, pass the ball 1,000 times, and they're going to face this like old school Nick Saban Alabama team in Utah that they're just not prepared for. I don't entirely buy into that. Okay. You have Fritz at 12. I have Fritz all the way up at 7. I am much higher on Fritz. Okay. And this is because I understand the argument about year one. I'm just not as, the dog is in the room now.
Hi, dog.
Just not. That's Watson, or as the kids call him, Hoo. Our oldest daughter. I would whistle for him. So my oldest daughter, when she was young, turned that into trying to whistle, which was Hoo, and then his name became Hoo. And so Hoo has joined us. I'll close the door in a second. I am less concerned about year one because I view Fritz more as that he's going to build Houston up the way it's supposed to be. I already think he's having more success in recruiting than Holgorsen did. So I'm not worried about Houston having a bad year one with Willie Fritz. I think he will build this up, and I'm going to give him that opportunity before I knock him just because I'm afraid year one might be a struggle. That's perfectly fine. It took him a little while to get Tulane rolling, right? He was 11 and 15 in his first couple seasons, and they went 7-6, 7-6, 6-6, 2-10, and then pop. It just took a while to get it rolling. This is a guy who turned Tulane, which had been a program that was bad. Bad football program into a really good team, a team that at least for most of his years there was making bowl games. That's not something you could say about Tulane a lot. He had success at Georgia Southern before he got there. In his 4 seasons at Sam Houston State at the FCS level, he got them the national championship game twice and another postseason appearance. He won 2 national championships at the JUCO level. Like, Willie Fritz has a lot. Willie Fritz to me is a lot like Lance Leopold, who we'll talk about in a little while. But like, I have enough of success from him here to say, and at places where you didn't always have success, to say, I trust that Willie Fritz knows what he's doing. He's been around the state of Texas. He's been in Louisiana. Like, he understands that area and region. He's talked about that they're going to recruit Louisiana and Texas, and that's all they're going to worry about because there's a ton of talent in Louisiana and Texas. He has enough connections and relationships there to recruit at a high level. And I'm not worried about the fact that they didn't play smash mouth at Tulane because Willie Fritz adapts. He is the kind of head coach that is going to adapt to what his roster is. He is a very adaptable head coach, is what you really kind of want to be. If you're unless you can get the players are guaranteed to play one style all the time, like, you need to be adaptable. I think he will have success at Houston. I don't know how long it'll take, but I think there's enough history there of success and of him building programs up and having the relationships that he does that I'm not going to fault him if year one is a little bit of a struggle. Now the cat's in here as well.
We had Noah's Ark in the Slavin household there. Yeah, I think for me though, it's more about for Willie. It's about, like, will he have the time to build it up? Because to your point, I think he can. So will he have the time? I think Houston will be patient with him, but remains to be seen. Again, Fertitta's got some Fertitta money, so we'll see what that ends up shaking out to be. There's the cat, and perhaps the best picture of the night is the cat over Philip there. I think the other thing about Willie Fritz though is just, will there be an opportunity? You can get the cat out. I'll filibuster for you here for a second. I think the other thing about Willie Fritz,
you go ahead. Thank you.
Will he have the horses to be able to get that thing turned around as quickly as I think he wants to? I think, the recruiting is going to be something Houston has to continue to work through. I think he'll get the team there, but will he have the time? I think that's the reason I look at this and say, hey, I don't know. Again, on the scale of what I wanted to be my head coach, a little older in the tooth, right? So I'm not holding that against him, but he's obviously been through some fires. He turned down Georgia Tech famously to stay at Tulane for for that last season there, which was pretty magical. So I like him as a coach, but it's also his first time at this level. And I think a lot of coaches are good at other levels. They get to that level and they go, oh my goodness, what's happening here? Right. We saw this very quick. I'm not comparing these two, but just giving another name for a comparison. You saw that happen with us and Scott Frost. He leaves UCF. He was the golden child. Nebraska was going to be in national championship games faster than he knew what to do. And now Scott Frost is on a golf course in Arizona. So these things don't always take as quickly as you think. And so I think that's a name that, but I guess I have that Scott Frost PTSD where I'm going to keep him in that 10, 11 range right now and arrow pointing upwards and hope he can get there. But so when I get to 11, again, I was really confused what to do with this coach because initially I had him really lower. I looked at the record. I looked at some of the stats. I looked at some of the things that he's done there. And there's a bit of an interesting, I think, conundrum either way. So 11, I have Kalani Sitake at BYU, 61-41 overall, 23-15 in his last 3 seasons. He's 5-7 last year. He's been there 8 years. He had a really good couple of years there, right there in smack dab in the middle of the Zach Wilson era, where they were 10 to 11 win teams right then and there. But if you throw that out, Philip, he's had some mediocre, right about 500 teams. I know it's a different animal to coach at BYU. I know there's a lot of different things that you have to deal with at BYU. I will say this: he was one of the nicer coaches that I interacted with at Big 12 Media Day. Stayed afterwards, took pictures, talked to people. Literally, BYU brings an army of media, by the way. I was not prepared for BYU Army. They had the literally more media than anybody else there, maybe except for Colorado. And he stopped and did interviews with every single one of those outlets, stayed afterwards, took pictures. So a really nice guy. I think he fits a lot of the BYU mold, but I think the results have been okay outside those 2 seasons. So I don't know what to make of him. So I had him lower, and then I looked at the record, looked at some other guys, and so I landed him at 11 on my power rankings.
I mean, I only have him one spot higher than you at number 10. As you mentioned, I'm glad you said that you had the opportunity to meet him and had that experience with him at Media Days, because that backs up everything anyone's ever said about him, I've ever heard about him, is that people really like him. People speak very highly of him. He's a very well-liked person. And look, I say this all the time, being well-liked will get you very far in life. A-holes who lose get fired quickly. Nice guys who lose get to keep their jobs for longer. Dave Aranda. And I get it. I do. I get that it's up and down. It is BYU. It is tough. It is, a COVID season. And then you have, what's his name, who's quarterback for 2021. Again, it's the end of the day. But you can also say he went 9-4 in his first year. He went 8-5 in 2022. Like he's only had 2 losing seasons on his resume. And I understand there's some mediocrity, but he only had 2 losing seasons. And one of those is year 1, transitioning up to a Power 5 conference. And he still went 5-7 and had multiple opportunities at the end of the year to get that 6th win and go bowling and join UCF as the only newcomers to go bowling last season. So like I understand expectations for this year are lower. And it's going to be interesting to see how BYU handles being in the Big 12. I think they should be somewhat benefited by having more teams in proximity to them, but BYU is such a unique case, kind of like Notre Dame, but even more so than like Notre Dame, of like they get the Mormons. A lot of the Mormons are coming to BYU. Like they have a lot of players, a lot of people all over the entire country who support them. Like you said, they have a ton of media. And maybe it's that he's a really nice guy and you want to like a really nice guy. I only have a 1 spot ahead of you, but I feel like he's done enough for me to say, like, I do think he's a good coach. And it's really hard with the coaches of the teams that are transitioning up it's not like COVID level, like we just had to set it way over there and not included in when we're talking, but I do want to give everyone a little bit of outside of Satterfield, sorry, a little bit of like a look. It's tough to transition up. BYU is in a very unique situation. I know they played a lot more Power 5 teams in their regular schedules than Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF did, because they were able to be that independent and have those. I still want to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt of saying, let's see what happens after year 1, year 2, and see what he does, because I do think highly of him. So again, 1 spot higher than you, really nice guy. People like him. I think that does go into this a little bit.
All right, here's where things get spicy, Philip. Number 10.
All right.
Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, I have a 10. 4-8, obviously, in 1 year at Colorado. We know the success he had at Jackson State. We know he brought a lot of his Louis luggage with him to Colorado, although he left some of that at the airport because, again, only 4 wins. Again, a second straight year of roster turnover. I will say this. He is a magnet, right? At Big 12 Media Day, everywhere he went, there was somebody following him. And for whatever you think of Deion, I will tell you, he was a nice enough guy. Like, he stopped and said hello to people, was trying to be, trying to be very nice and hospitable. His handlers kind of move him around a little bit, so I don't know how much time he gets, but he stopped, he said hello, fist pump people, said, God bless everybody, right? He was an approachable enough guy. Love him or hate him, he's a lightning rod, but he attracts people. So I think he's good for the Big 12 overall. I think you heard Brett Yormark say that. You heard a lot of coaches say he's good for the Big 12. I just don't know if he's a good coach yet. I really don't know if he's a good coach. I know he can bring in talent. I'm also concerned, how invested is he? And this isn't going to be longevity Big 12 poll, but he's got his sons. He's got Travis Hunter, who are all talking about leave. Is he going to stay at Colorado once they go? Is he invested at that point, or is he looking for the next job? Is he going to the NFL? I just don't know if he's a good coach. The roster turnover year over year, the staff turnover is also concerning to me, right? Like, you got rid of your OC, Sean Lewis, after like 3 games. You bring in a new staff. Like, I just think there's some things there that he has to work out in terms of figuring out his coaching ability. But that 20%, if I said to you, that's your coach, we had this conversation while we were at Big 12 Media Day, myself and some other folks in the media. Would you want him as your coach? And I said, hell yeah. Because you're going to get a quote out of him every day. You're going to get something interesting. He's going to be fun to cover versus who I cover today daily. Bailey basically says nothing in every press conference, and you're reading between the lines. You tell me I get a coach who's going to have some fun, who's going to laugh, smile, do some stuff. I might sign up for that. So I think I could take that, but I don't know if he can coach or not. 4-8. It's not a good sample size. I don't know if they're going to be any better this year. I don't know how invested he is. And I'm really more concerned about his team and roster management. Kids and coaches just fleeing to get away from that place. I think it has me concerned about if he came to my school, what would happen. So I've got Deion ranked 10, Coach Prime, as he likes to be called, ranked 10th on this list.
I have him down at 13. So
okay.
Lower for a lot of the same reasons of, I'm going to give him his credit for his 23-3 record, his final 2 seasons at Jackson State. Colorado, we do have to remember that Colorado was not a good school. It is not a good college football program for a very long time. And he did walk into a situation, to his own making, of there's some of those guys he ran off in the offseason when he arrived that I think it seemed like a great idea and it was brash and it was fun, but he probably could have benefited by staying there, specifically some of the offensive linemen and defensive linemen, because at this point you got to remember, you can't build an offensive line through the transfer portal. Nobody can. That's not a realistic expectation. Keeping some of those offensive linemen, just from a depth standpoint, probably would have benefited them this year. And I get his first thing, his brash personality rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. A lot of people, especially in college football, don't want to see him succeed because it kind of proves them wrong in the way they do things. He wants to do things differently. He does attract players. He does attract talent. As we said last night, we named, I think, 4 Colorado players on our rankings between myself and Joe last night, and 4 different players of immediate impact transfer portal players at Colorado, because I do think he hasn't continued to improve this roster this offseason. We still don't know if this experiment's going to work. To your point, we don't know how long he wants to be there. What happens once his son is gone? Does he continue to stay there? And the high school recruiting has not been nearly as good as I thought it would be. He's done a good job in the portal, but the high school recruiting just has not been there. And that's not a way to build a program to long-term success, which feeds into the how long is he going to be here. So look, I don't know if this is going to work or not. That's why I have him so low, because you got talent to show up to Jackson State. It made it easy to win. You got some of that talent to Colorado. You continue to improve that roster. We'll see what it looks like in year 2. I would not be surprised if they get to 6 wins. And if they get a 2-win improvement, that shows that things are moving in the right direction, right? So we'll keep an eye on it. He was, when I first started building my list, I tiered it off into 4 tiers. He was in that, it's kind of like the start of tier 3 for me, of like guys I have a lot of question marks about, but I still I'm higher on than the guys at the very bottom. And so I'm not out on it. I'm coming around on the notion of Deion Sanders, but I've got to see more from Colorado this year, and some consistency from a coaching standpoint before I'm going to do anything more than that level of 13.
Interesting. I gave him a bump because something you just said there. If nothing else, he's going to get into the room with the top kids. He's going to get an audience. He's going to get a chance to have a phone call, get it in somebody's house, get in somebody's DMs. Now, does he get that kid to go to the school? That's another story. Can he develop that kid? Another story. But he's going to get in rooms that I don't know that many other coaches on this list are going to be able to get into. And so I think you have to give him a nudge for that. Now, to your point, you can amass all the talent you want, but if you can't coach them, you don't have assistant coach, it's not going to really matter much, right? But
Texas
I give him a nod.
Decade.
I give him a nod because he can get in those rooms and he can have those conversations. I do think what's interesting, to your point, he made reference like really early out of the gate at Big 12 Media Day, talking about how many high school recruits he had, their GPA. I mean, he's trying to talk about how he's doing doing things the right way, quote unquote, in terms of what I think people expect from him. But it hasn't really materialized yet. So I think there's still a lot of wait and see on Deion. This is ultimate boomer bust hire, right? Like this is either going to be the thing that changes the face of college sports forever, or remember that time we hired Deion Sanders? It's going to be one of those two. And I don't know there's very much in between. So right now I got him at 10, kind of in that middle portion. But I think, to your point, after this next season, we'll kind of see where he grades out at.
If you're Colorado, you have to know he's not going to be there forever. At this point, you're just hoping he leaves it better than he found it.
Yes.
Like that is the best you can hope for at this point, outside of he's going to really find success. Because the second he finds real success, he's gone. Or he doesn't have success and he's gone. Or his son's going to go to the NFL and he's gone.
Yep.
We don't know. But if he can leave it better than he found it, then it will have been a successful hire for Colorado as opposed to a fun blip that we move on from. Okay, I think you are up to number 9.
I'm at 9. This is where things get a little bit wonky for me because there's like a pack. Yeah, you talked about tiers. There's kind of a pack in this tier of like, well, is this guy better than that guy? And like I'm splitting hairs here and there. So at 9, I went Neal Brown, West Virginia. He's been there 5 years, 20 and 18 the last 3 seasons. He's 31-29 overall at West Virginia. He's 9-4 last year. I think they had an uptick. Garrett Green looks like a really good quarterback. But I think even West Virginia fans are kind of like, is he staying? Is he going? I think there's obviously a lot of chatter off season. So I just don't know if Neal Brown is really going to figure it out at West Virginia too. I also made the joke too. Neal Brown has the personality of a guy you'd expect named Neal Brown. He wasn't very talkative, was kind of very one-word answer, right? Wasn't very effusive in his conversation. So he had the personality of a guy you'd expect with the name Neal Brown. So I have him at 9. Again, could he be 8? Maybe. Could he be 10? Maybe. But I think he's really in that middle tier. He's had some success, not a ton of success. I think this year will be interesting. Garrett Green, obviously a really good quarterback coming back. What can they do in that offense? This could be the year you find out. Do you have the chops in a Neal Brown? Can he kind of have that stock up situation here? But right now, I got him at 9.
This is the first time we have agreed tonight, sir. I also have Neal Brown at 9, right dead smack in the middle of the rankings. Like we're far enough away from his success at Troy that it's a part of the equation, but it's a small part of the equation. And he has struggled at West Virginia. I mean, last year was his hot seat year. If it didn't work, we all thought he was going to be gone. Now, by a certain point, we're like, no, because he's winning. And also his buyout is insanely high and they're not going to pay Ribbaker's not going to pay to get rid of him with as much as they would have had to spend. Yeah. Last year was a really good year. He was spicy last year because they got picked 14th to finish last in the preseason. So he was spicy. It's interesting that this year he's kind of quiet, which is interesting also because you see a lot of West Virginia fans who are like, why doesn't anybody want to talk about West Virginia? Why are we talking about West Virginia? And so West Virginia's kind of stayed under the radar as opposed to it being a team that should be considered in contention, like, 8 other teams in the Big 12 conference this season for a trip to Arlington. It's one good year where the schedule was supposed to be really hard and it turned out not to be. And they looked pretty good. And they also had some weird games. Yeah. I'm high on Garrett Green. Their running back duo of CJ Donaldson and Jaheim White doesn't get the credit that a lot of the other running backs in the Big 12 do because them and Garrett Green all run the ball. And so there's not one guy putting up the kinds of yards that Taj Brooks and RJ Harvey and Ollie Gordon are. So they don't get that kind of credit, but I do think their running back duo is really, really good. And I think it's right there with RJ Harvey, Penny Boone, and the 2 guys at Kansas State whose names completely just escaped my mind. It's Dylan Edwards, and I'm not going to remember the other guy's name, and I'm really sorry, Kansas State fans. If you're watching, please don't get mad at me. You can hit it up in the comments. You can remember who it is. Thank you, DJ Giddens. I think there's a lot there to be excited about for West Virginia. And I am all about that week 1 game against Penn State because somehow they find a way to overcome their week 1 losses where they lose close to in big games. If they find a way to win that game, oh man, that's going to put West Virginia on the map for the season. So I agree with it 9. It's last year gives me some hope. But this we've got enough of his history at West Virginia to say like, okay, I think he's a good coach. He hung on to mediocre to bad quarterbacks for too long. Now they finally have a good quarterback. Everyone looks better when they have a good quarterback. Let's see what they do now that it seems like they've got good pieces set, assuming they all stay healthy.
All right, number 8 for me, and this is the only person I did this with, and I feel like I'm knocking him because of this, but I feel like it's also justified. Number 8, I have Joey McGuire at Texas Tech. Been there 2 seasons, 15-11. 8 wins, 7 win seasons overall. I actually really like Joe McGuire. From everything you hear about Joe McGuire, I had a brief interaction with him at Media Day. Really nice guy, very personable, loves to talk ball. You can tell he really loves football. He's kind of that football junkie. But I looked at it this way. He's probably the best coach for like 2 or 3 jobs, and that's it. Like Joey McGuire's not playing in West Virginia. He's not going to Utah. He's not going to Arizona. Like you've got a little core base in Texas where I think Joey McGuire can be really, really super successful. I think he can take Texas Tech to that level. I think he's got to get quarterbacks figured out at some point, right? Because they haven't necessarily kind of, really solved that. Tyler Shuck's on his 3rd or 4th school at this point now. I'm not even really sure anymore. And I think Joey's a really good coach. I think that he's a really good hire for Texas Tech. This feels like one that hopefully he's there 10, 15, 20 years because I think that's the spot for him. But I don't see him. He's not going to any other school and working out. I think he's perfect where he is. And that's kind of why I bumped him down a little bit because he just fits where he's at. Good coach, solid coach. Will get you some wins. 2 winning seasons in his first 2 years there. I think he'll continue to build on that. But I don't know what that next gear looks like for Joey McGuire. So to me, he's in that middle tier, that middle packet
8. Shout out John Grove for watching right now. A win for West Virginia over Penn State, and all of a sudden Pat McAfee will demand for more Mountaineer coverage throughout the season. That is a very accurate statement. Okay, you're higher on McGuire than I am at this point. Okay, I have him down at 12. And let me explain this. It's not that I'm not high on McGuire. It's I still need to see a little bit more. We're 2 seasons in. The guy can recruit like crazy. You're correct. He only works in Texas. He only works in the state of Texas. It does not work outside of Texas. I don't like, no, it just doesn't. 2 seasons, 2 solid seasons, back-to-back bowl games. Yep. Like this feels like a foundation has been built and this program is continuing to grow. I'm not knocking him as much for last year being a disappointing season. I thought expectations were too high, and they were. And I can't blame him for the curse of Texas Tech quarterbacks being unable to stay healthy because that's existed since before he got there. But I need to see. I'm hesitant to have been fooled because I don't believe in sure thing hires anymore. After Tom Herman failed at Texas and as you mentioned, failed at Nebraska, Scott Frost, like I am hesitant on perfect hire. I think he's a perfect hire in the state of Texas. I think he will work. And I am ready to just bang the drum for Joey McGuire all over the place. But I need to see it on the field. I need it to happen on the field. I need that breakthrough season. I said when he got hired, year 3 is going to be the year, if this is really going to work, that you should pop because he'll have his guys in. All this recruiting that they've been doing, all the talent they've been bringing will work. It's going to matter so much about if Behren Morton, if it really is Morton time or if it's another quarterback who can't stay healthy and they're on the 2nd and 3rd string again. And it's been a curse for Texas Tech for years. I hope that Behren Morton stays healthy. I hope Behren Morton good. Like we said with Neil Brown, like every coach looks better when they have a good quarterback. Even good coaches look bad when they don't. So I'm still not quite there with him yet. I want to be higher. I'm ready to. It's like it's bubbling right there. You've shaken the soda can, and I'm ready to pop that top and let it explode out. But I can't quite pull it yet. So I've got him low. It's probably too low. I probably should have a little bit more invested in him. But especially after 2 seasons that I would be considered good seasons at Texas Tech, who has struggled to stay consistent. Yeah. If this is the breakthrough year, and it might be, all right, bump him. He's going up. He's going up that list.
Josh Brooks cure some of those ills too. If obviously he stayed healthy, he's a dynamic running back there. All right, at 7. This is where things are getting interesting. So to my UCF fans, I apologize. I have Gus Malzahn at 7. So Gus, 100 wins and 54 losses in his career, 24-16 in his time at UCF. He won 9 games his first 2 years at UCF, a losing season this past year. And here's why I have Gus there. I think Gus has absolutely turned around the UCF program. Recruiting is in the top 20, top 15 place at this point. They are a transfer portal destination. The NIL game has completely upped itself since he's been there. Fundraising has been up. There's new buildings already planned and coming throughout. You're getting more media coverage because your name is Gus Malzahn, and he obviously brings a pedigree with him. His in-game decisions are still what you'd expect out of Gus Malzahn. The 3rd and 1 oop-de-oop double reverse to the left tackle still exists in the playbook. He's burned through offensive coordinators. Now we are on our 4th offensive coordinator in 4 years of Gus. Some of them are now coming back. So we continue to kind of burn through staff on the offensive side as well. And look, I think I'm not one to inject coaches with truth serum. But if you heard Kenny Dillingham's commentary about Gus Malzahn, he basically called him stubborn, right? With that square peg, round hole, hammer the thing in there. Like, that was just a nice guy way of saying Gus is stubborn. And Gus is stubborn. I think Gus has to prove himself this year at UCF. I know maybe that's a UCF homer in me talking. I think Gus is living off a lot of what he did at Auburn and the success he had at Auburn. Every coach we talked to, Philip, and obviously it was my job to cover UCF, so I asked every coach, tell me about Gus. What do you think of UCF? Everybody's like, oh, real ball coach. Yeah, he's been doing it a long time. Nothing about recent success. A lot about Gus is a good coach. He's always had good teams. He's always had good programs. And so it's almost like he's trading off his name a little bit. 24-16 is a good record in 3 seasons. Don't get me wrong. 2 of those in the American, though. So figure out how you want to negotiate that. To your point, the only team to get into a bowl game in year 1 of the new 4. So I have him at 7. But I think you can look at the records and you can look at the name and go, oh, Gus Malzahn, that's a great coach, and give him up your board a little bit. But I think if you dig into the numbers and watch Gus call a game, have copious amounts of alcohol nearby, because it's going to drive you to have to hit that a few different times throughout the 60-minute duration of that game.
I wondered who would have Gus higher, you or me. And it's me.
Fair, okay.
And maybe I am giving him. I have him at 5, and which is going to really piss off Iowa State fans if you're watching. I do give him a credit because I think I don't think he gets enough credit for what he did at Auburn, where it's a really hard place to play. It's a really hard place to coach. And it is such a behind the scenes mess. And they ran him off, the coach who had the best record against Nick Saban, because he wasn't Nick Saban. Like, he got run off from Auburn because he wasn't Nick Saban. Like, he couldn't reach Nick Saban's success, and Auburn gets so like, we should also be that good when it's not a realistic expectation. Like, I know he was only at 1 season at Arkansas State. He was good that season. I understand the stuff with UCF, and I don't disagree on the stubbornness. And he's one of those guys who would benefit greatly from being willing to actually hand off the playbook. Every time he's like, I'm going to hand off the playbook to some new offensive coordinator, I'm like, bull. I can hear the entire state, like the entire city of Orlando just goes, BS, Gus. We don't believe you. Because he won't. And I get it. The stubborn thing, it is a problem. And I think it cost them in some games last year.
It did, yes.
Which is frustrating because I think UCF could have had an even better record than they did last year. Had just some balls bounced the right way, and so maybe a play call works here, right there. The Baylor game. I'm sorry. I
need to hold on a second. Let me just.
We're gonna pause for a moment. But I think Gus is a good coach. I really think he is. I think the recruiting is coming at UCF. I think that's if we need to give credit for recruiting. I don't think we always give enough credit. I don't want to give too much because we've seen good recruiting does not equal wins. They are recruiting so well. You guys are at UCF. Things continue to move in the positive. And I definitely think this is one of those, like, Gus is there. Like, he's like, this is until he's bad or retires, like, Gus is at UCF. I don't think he's leaving unless they want him to, or he retires. And I think I think it's a perfect head coach of, I have success, I will continue to have success. And I think as the talent level increases at UCF, you're going to see the wins continue to increase, because look, you're always going to have a game where he's going to make a play call and a stubborn decision and something dumb, and it's going to drive you all crazy. And instead of an 11-1 season, you're 10-2, but 10-2 still probably will get you to Arlington. And I think the talent will continue to grow. I am high on Gus Malzahn. That's why I have him number 5, because I do give him a lot of credit for the success that he had at Auburn. He's a stubborn pain, but you don't win that much by accident.
I will say I think the only place Gus ever goes outside of UCF is Arkansas. So if Sam Pittman gets ran out there, he's from Arkansas, one more shot in the SEC. Keep an eye on that. My sixth coach.
I'd rather be at UCF.
I don't disagree with you, but he talks all the time about how he loves Arkansas. That's his spot. So that's the only thing I think that ever pulls him out of UCF is Arkansas.
Maybe.
The only thing. John Calipari's there now. They're investing in their programs. Maybe Gus sees it as an opportunity to do something. Who knows? So Gus I actually had higher for a while, but then I also was like, I need to take off my UCF glasses and make sure I'm being fair with this analysis. And so the coach I have at 6, I probably could have and should have slopped with Gus, because I feel like this is the hot button coach, and I don't know where you have him at, but at 6, I have the very well tanned Matt Campbell from Iowa State. He is my 6th coach. Obviously 18-20 this last 3 years at Iowa State is not good. I was also surprised to see he never had a 10-win season at Iowa State. I always think of him as a solid coach, a name you hear a lot. Every school's after him. Every NFL team's after him. So from afar, I guess I assumed he just had this fantastic record. 88-63 overall. Again, I know they've struggled a little bit the last couple of seasons. So I have Matt Campbell at 6. Maybe I'm treading on the name on that and just not following the Big 12 as closely for the last 5-6 years and just always hearing his name as the next coach of fill in the blank school there. But I will say, if I'm judging on TANs, that man spent 0 time in Ames, Iowa. I can tell you that right now, Philip. He was in Cancun or he was in Cabo because that man's tan was impressive. But TANs are not how we do this. We do this on coaching records. I have him at 6.
Let me just say, you can't hold the fact that Matt Campbell doesn't have a 10-win season against him, because Iowa State doesn't have a 10-win season in program history at all. It's one of those things that all fans like to poke at Iowa State fans about, and they'll bring up a bowl game against Clemson or something and whatever. I also have him at 6. We have him in the exact same spot. And I think what he has done at Iowa State is fantastic. I mean, he has had sustained success at a program that is not used to having sustained success. Every time his name comes up for a new job opening, it's malarkey. He's not leaving. He's not going to go to a USC. He's not going to go to an Ohio State. He's not going to do that, because here's the thing about Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell is not going to do the things in recruiting that you have to do to win it, to get the level, the talent that you need to win at those kinds of places. That's not who he is. He's not going to do it. And so, he's not going to take those jobs. He's not leaving Iowa State. Next time someone talks about his job, his name and attachment to a Big Ten opening, I will be shocked. And I mean, to my core shocked, if Matt Campbell ever leaves Ames, Iowa, and is not the head coach at Iowa State because he wasn't fired or retired. He leaves from their job. I'll be shocked. Tons and tons and tons of credit for being as good as he has been at Iowa State. Here's the thing that really bugs Iowa State fans. His best season, his 9-win season, his 9-3 year, 8-1 in conference play, wins the Fiesta Bowl, loses to OU in the Big 12 championship game, was the COVID season. That's his best year. It was a really good year, but then he comes back the next year. Things are a little more equal. They've got a bunch of their players back. They go 7-6. I like Iowa State this year. I think they're a good dark horse. I think they have a shot because Rocco Becht is really good. I think they've got talent on that roster. The defense is always good. John Heacock is fantastic. Matt Campbell, though, and I'm trying to find it because I have it somewhere in here. I've got to find I can't remember where I have it. Matt Campbell's record in 1-score games is absolutely abysmal. And if I can find, this is going to drive me nuts that I can't find where did I drop it? Did I drop it in here? 1-score games. I will read you his record in 1-score games during his time at Iowa State from 2016 on. 1-4, 3-4, 4-2, 2-4, 4-2, 2-5, 1-6, 3-4. He's really bad at 1-score games. Hey, guess what? They have had terrible special teams play most of his tenure there as well. There are just things that absolutely hold them back on a consistent basis, which is why I can't, despite how good a job he has done in a program where you just don't have or expect success, a guy that has raised the expectations and the level of awareness and perception of Iowa State to a level it's never been at. I give him a ton of credit for that. But at this point, I also have him at 6 because there's just other guys I've become more impressed. Like, I hate to do the like shiny new toy thing, but there's other guys that are newer to this conference that I am more impressed with than Matt Campbell is at this point, despite the fact that I do think he is a good coach. I just think he also stubbornly has things that are just always going to hold him back unless he makes changes to figure those out.
All right, number 5. It's funny. This is going to be a backhanded compliment. I don't mean it this way, but I was going through my list and I was like, I haven't put this coach's name down yet. And I'm like, wait, is he number 5? Like, is he that high on the list? Like, should he be lower? And then I was like, well, I can't put him here. And so I really had a debate, but he ended up at 5 for me, which is Sonny Dykes at TCU. He's obviously been there 2 seasons. He had the 1 year to get to the national title game and get just curb stomped against Georgia 13-2 that year. You count the last year at SMU, 26-13 in his last 3 years there. I think he obviously had a really rough year last year. They lose that first game to Colorado. I think wheels fell off, quarterback issues. So we'll see if they've got that figured out. They have a young kid who I think can play pretty well. He was a pretty impressive young man that we met at Big 12 Media Day. So I think he's a good coach. He had success at SMU. Helped turn that around with Tanner Mordecai. So I think he's got some. But when I had him at 5, I was like, is he really 5? Like maybe he's 6 or maybe he's 7. And then I kind of, started splitting hairs there. So I kept him at 5, although I'm not convinced he's the 5th best coach in the Big 12, but that's just kind of where he ended up on my list. So I apologize to TCU Nation for the backhanded compliment there, but I have Sonny Dykes at 5 on my coaching list.
I have him down at 8.
Okay.
This was like the start of tier 2. And what's interesting is our top 4 coaches are going to be the same top 4, maybe not in the same order, but at this point, we've now named all the same coaches with 2 of them being in the same spot. I think I'm really interested in Sonny Dykes. Similar to Aranda, am I giving him too much credit? Which is funny to say even at 8 for taking TCU to the national championship game. But I think I feel good at 8. He got them there with a roster he didn't build.
Yep.
I don't want to hold that against him too much. He's had success at Louisiana Tech. He had success at SMU. He did not do well at Cal. And at this point, from everything anyone's ever heard, it's more to do with Cal than it was to do with Sonny Dykes. That was a bad fit. That is not a program that you can win at very well. It was not a great spot for him. TCU was a perfect fit. And stealing SMU's coach was just another little cherry on top for TCU, right? It's funny that we go from a team that went 13-2 and made the national championship game into a team that went 5-7, because I think Sonny Dykes is probably somewhere more in the middle, but a guy I think is more toward the 13-2 side. He's swapped out coordinators now, both OC and DC from who he hired on.
Yep.
Still not a big fan of bringing back a he who shall not be named name into Fort Worth. Not sure that's great. And the results were definitely not worth the burning all your goodwill on that hire, Sonny Dykes. So we'll see how it works there. Yeah. I have him 8, which again, middle of the pack for me, because I get what he did in year 1 and he deserves credit for that. But both the OC and DC who helped him do that are gone. It's a totally different roster than what he had when he did that. And so now it's starting to feel more like his team. And so we're going to give him more success for last year and this year and next year to see what he did. The national championship game is going to keep him in Fort Worth for a while. So we're going to have plenty of opportunity to see who he really is when things kind of average out. I have a middle of the pack because I think he's a middle of the pack coach who had an absolutely incredible season and then had a 5-7 season, which also sounds so much like his predecessor of like awesome year, no bowl game. Awesome, no bowl game. So, it's very he's very TCU's perfect fit.
Okay, you could have talked me into 6, 7, 8 for him as well. That's why I did this, and I was like, is he 5 really? But I didn't want to, I have a spreadsheet, Philip. I didn't want to have to hit delete on that thing. So
before we get to the top 4, we do have to mention one thing that is always consistent across the board is the absolutely incredible apparel you'll find at Charlie Hustle, sponsor here at the 1012 podcast and the entire 1012 network. They love the Big 12. They've got great gear for every single current Big 12 school. They just launched stuff for Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah. They are fantastic. I love the Arizona collection most of all. I really like the ASU stuff. They just got done with the Big 8 Roadshow. Fantastic gear for the schools that were in the Big 8, the Iowa State, the Kansas State, the OSU. Everything was absolutely fantastic. I keep mentioning every time I'm here the Colorado Skiing National Championship here. Like who doesn't want a Colorado? Like that's the kind of thing you find at a thrift shop and you're like, I gotta have that because it's hilarious and people will ask me about it. Like that's how much I like that kind of shirt. They've got great UCF stuff. They're gonna have more things to come as we get closer to the college football season. So if you didn't get new gear as a Big 12 school in Big 8 Roadshow or in the drop for the new schools, don't worry, there's more to come. They keep teasing this new Cincinnati shirt, and I haven't seen it actually on the website, but there's a new Cincinnati shirt. I know that's coming because they've shown it a couple of times now. So if you're a Big 12 fan, which if you're watching the show, you probably are, you need to remember the promo code 101215, TEN1215, gets you 15% off all non-sale items at charliehustle.com. I'll say that again, TEN1215 at checkout for 15% off all non-sale items. They've got tons of great gear for Big 12 fans to get you ready for this season. Great vintage designs, great unique stuff. They've got more stuff coming out all the time. So keep an eye on that website. Go shop now. Use the promo code. Go shop later. Use that promo code 101215, 15% off. charliehustle.com. Vintage made fresh. All right, Adam, we have come to the top four. We have the same top four. Let me kind of rehash for everybody real quick. Adam, in order from 16 up, is Brent Brennan, Kenny Dillingham, Dave Aranda, Scott Satterfield, Willie Fritz, Kalani Sitake, Deion Sanders, Neil Brown, Joey McGuire, Gus Malzahn, Matt Campbell, and Sonny Dykes at number 5. And at this point, my order is a little bit different, but it's the same coaches from 16 through 5 in a slightly different order. So we have the same top 4. Time to see if our order is the same. At number 4, who do you have?
This is really tough because the name I put at 4, I really wanted to put higher, but I still think I need one more season just to make sure this person is who we thought they were, Dennis Green style. Number 4, Lance Leipold from Kansas. He's been there 3 years, 17-21 overall. He cleaned up a mess from David Beatty. This is not your grandfather's Kansas, right? This is not the Les Miles, David Beatty era in Kansas. Lance Leipold has completely changed that culture there. He's got a winning formula. Hasn't had a lot of success having his quarterback stay healthy, has a really dynamic quarterback in Daniels, who I think when he's on the field plays really well, has a great rushing attack with Devin Neal. I think he's one of those up and coming coaches. To our earlier conversation on Matt Campbell, whenever there's an opening, Lance's name pops into the mix. So I think obviously a lot of ADs, a lot of schools are high on him. I think he's made Kansas a location where kids are now willing to maybe go and play there, and he's got some talent on the field. Just hasn't really put it all together yet. If we were doing this list again in 12 months or 24 months, I might say Lance is in that top spot. I think I need, similar to what you said earlier with like Joey McGuire, I need one more season just to make sure he is who I think he is. But I have Lance Leipold at number 4.
We agree. I have a feeling we might agree all the way up here. We'll see. I agree at number 4. It's not just that he turned around. Kansas football was a meme. That's what it was. Losing to Kansas in football was like the worst thing you could possibly do. Every time a team lost, they were ridiculed in the 12. When TCU did it, when Texas did it, when Texas did it in Austin. If you lost to Kansas in football as a fan base, just go to bed and don't get up till next week, and hopefully your team will get a win, and then you can go back to living your life again. That's how bad Kansas was in the view of Kansas. That's gone. Like, you just wanted Kansas to not be a meme. From 2-10 to 2-10, and mind you, he got hired like at the end of spring ball for year 1. So year 1 was, I know we don't do year zeros anymore, but like it's the closest thing to a modern year 0 as you can get of getting hired at the end of spring ball, where you basically can't do anything with your team until fall ball starts. To flipping that around to 6-7 with a bowl game, to 9-4 and a bowl win, like back-to-back bowl games for Kansas. He has done an incredible job, an absolutely incredible job at Kansas. They get good talent. That roster is good. It's competitive. It's exciting. I know they just lost their OC, so we'll see what it looks like without Kotelnicki, who was an absolutely fantastic offensive play caller. But this also goes with his entire career. At D3 Wisconsin Whitewater, he won 7 national championships in 9 seasons. Like, I know it's D3. I don't care. He was 109-6 at Wisconsin Whitewater. 109-6. He had 1 7-3 season. Every other year he went to the national championship. He lost it once. He won it 6 times. I don't even know what to do with that. Then he goes to Buffalo, which is an awful college football program. That's one of those ones like we have college football to say we have college football, but we don't do anything. He won 10 games at Buffalo. I understand the COVID season was the COVID season and we throw it out. He still went 6-1. He won 10 games at Buffalo. He went to a bowl game. He was bowl eligible 4 straight seasons at Buffalo and went to 3 straight bowl games. Lance Leipold is a good coach. There's no doubt about that. I don't care what he does the rest of the way at Kansas. He is a good football coach. I think he'll continue to have success at Kansas. He is adaptable as well. He's one of those coaches that will make sure that the scheme fits the players so that they can have success with who they have on the roster. I think he'll continue to have success at Kansas. I don't think until he leaves, Kansas is going to have any worries about going back to being a laughingstock meme of a college football program. So I think he's a good coach. I've got him at 4-2. He's had success everywhere he's gone and at places where it's hard to win. He's a damn good coach.
Fun fact, he was hired by former UCF AD Danny White when Danny White was the AD at Buffalo. So Danny White's last 3 head football coach hires are Lance Leipold, Scott Frost, and Josh Heupel twice. So he's done pretty good on the hiring front from coaches. So with Lance at 4, 3, I went Chris Kleiman, Kansas State, 27-13 over the past 3 seasons. Again, a smash mouth football team. They're going to be really good this year with Avery Johnson. What obviously you're getting from a running back perspective. They're putting guys in the NFL all the time. I think he's an underrated coach. I think, kind of his background coming from the Dakotas, right? Like, I don't know how much he's on anyone's radar. Similar to McGuire, I don't know he plays everywhere. I don't know that he fits everywhere. I don't think he's going to go to Washington, right? And maybe turn that around, or Oregon, stuff like that. I think he's perfect where he's at. He's a good football coach. Again, I had a chance to spend a little bit of time with him at media day. Loves talking ball, loves talking X and O's, loves his team. And I actually almost put in 2, but I decided to stick him at 3 just because the other 2 that I've got on my list have some longevity that I don't want to overlook. So 3, Chris Kleiman, Kansas State.
We agree again, sir. And shout out to everybody watching right now. Truett Taylor, JBaller54. Thanks so much. Keep going in the comments. I appreciate seeing all of it. We are paying attention. Look, you won 4 national championships in 5 seasons, the head coach at North Dakota State. You won a Big 12 title. Your one bad season, your 4-6 year, COVID. What have we said this whole time? Throw the COVID season out. Okay. Yep. 39-24. Take out the COVID season. He's 35 and 18. He is a good head coach. Yep. This has been a successful program, a consistently successful program where you expect no worse than 8 wins. Like, there's high expectations for them this season. I may differ on those a little bit, but I have no doubt that Kansas State's going to have another good year. If not for the 1 and 2, I get it. That's obvious that he's third. He's a really good coach. He is one of the best coaches in the country to me. I agree on the he's not going to work everywhere, but if Wisconsin were to open up again,
you call him.
It makes a lot of sense. That's a call. Yeah. That's the first call you make.
Yeah, you make him tell you no for sure.
Yeah, there are places he would go and have absolute success. I don't think there's a lot of programs that he would leave Kansas State for either.
Agree.
Because he's got it really good there. They're obviously recruiting at a really high level. You got Avery Johnson. You landed the number 1 tight end in the country, a kid out of Kansas that you got to commit there. They're recruiting at a level that we're not even used to at Kansas State. He's got that program rolling. I say this all the time. I don't think one team's going to dominate the Big 12. I think it's more likely 3 or 4 or 5 teams.
Yeah.
Kansas State, as long as he is there, is going to be one of those teams. So agree there.
I think it's always going to be a rock fight, and I think we'll always have a rock in that rock fight.
A very large and
a large boulder size rock. All right, 2 and 1. Obviously, I think there's 2 names on the board left. I'm curious if you and I have aligned on this.
Okay.
So I'll reveal my number 2, Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State. I have him at number 2. Obviously, 166 career wins at Oklahoma State, 19 seasons there, 29-12 in his last couple of years. It's had some ups and downs. Really, here's the thing. If you just took a microphone and a Twitter account away from Mike Gundy, things may be a lot better for him from that standpoint. He may be a lot more desirable from that perspective. Just don't let him wear T-shirts. Don't give him a Twitter account and take a microphone out of his face. But you cannot argue with the success he's had and the longevity he's had at Oklahoma State. He's made that team and that program, obviously, in the top of of college football year in, year out. Yeah, you have your blips here and there, but you're going to do that in 19 seasons. He continues to find kids that are there and play really well. I think he's got to get the quarterback figured out a little bit. I still think there's probably some work that needs to be done there too, but I think he's a solid football coach, good X's and O's. I do have a theory though, Philip. I think if he didn't have a mullet, I think he'd have been fired a long time ago. But I think the mullet's kind of like you're a nice guy, you're a mean guy, or you have a mullet, I think keeps you employed. But I got Gundy at 2 in the power rankings.
I was wondering what happened here. I went Whittingham at 2. I have Gundy at 1. And here's the thing. If you want to say that I'm being OSU biased, not you, but people watching, that's fine. You're welcome to do so. I don't think there's enough there between Whittingham, who you're going to have at 1 than I have 2, and Gundy to say like this one is definitively better than the other. At this point, it is a matter of preference. Yeah. And Utah fans are going to point to Whittingham has more championships at the Power 5 level at Pac-12, and Big 12 fans are going to talk to Mike Gundy has 1 losing season in year 1 and hasn't had a losing season ever since, and all these different things. You can point out pluses and minuses of both coaches all day, and the difference is really, to me, going to be just your matter of preference of what you want to prioritize towards over the other. Because I don't think there is any sort of data point specifically that says this coach is way better than the other. Whittingham is what, 162 and 79.
Yep, 79. Yep. So they're 4 games apart.
166 and 79.
Yep. Last 3 seasons, Gundy is 29 and 12. Whittingham is 28 and 13. They're literally the same coach. Just one wears a black suit and can probably kick everybody's ass, and the other one has a mullet.
The reason I put the thing that I have decided is the reason I put Gundy higher. Because again, we're talking about 2 guys who their bosses that they replaced went on to win national championships at the schools that they left to in Urban Meyer and Les Miles, and both have left, and now we don't really like either one of them because they're a bit weird. Whittingham, Utah has been very consistent at what they are. Gundy has had to reinvent himself and Oklahoma State as a program multiple times. They were the high-flying number 1 offense in the country. Justin Blackman, Brandon Whedon should have been in the national championship game, but they had to have an SEC repeat because of, whatever. And picking off interceptions left, right, and Sunday to the next time they're in having the next best season of program history is with a top 5 defense in the country. Like to have your 2 best seasons as head coach be at absolute like polar opposites of what you wanted to be is wild and incredible to me. Again, here's the deal. They have had 1 losing season. It was year 1. They have not had a losing season at Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy since then. Sure. Do you know how hard that is to do? That is incredible. I think both programs have been raised to a significantly higher level because of these guys and the longevity. It's going to be really interesting when both leave. I'm not going to argue with anyone who tells me Whittingham should be 1. I'm not going to argue with anybody who says Gundy should be 2. I'm not going to, because it's just a matter of preference to me.
Yeah, I mean, in my analysis, really, honestly, the thing I looked at was the success he's had at the bowl game level, Whittingham, that is, at Utah, right? But a different conference, and that's kind of where I really was sort of caught up. Gundy's been successful. Your task for me was rank the Big 12 coaches. Well, Whittingham hasn't coached the game in the Big 12 yet. Now, I think 20 years in, you go, hey, I think we know what we're going to get here. To your point, there's consistency there. I also give him a little bit of a nod. I mean, to keep Utah a power, right, is probably a little bit harder than you and I maybe give her credit for, right? It's maybe not the best fertile recruiting space. He gets kids there year in and year out too. He continues to have a consistent program, and so I gave him a little bit of a nod, but again, I'm, 99-98, right? To me, it was a bit of a coin flip. If anything, I probably knocked Gundy a little bit just for his program management and how sometimes he can get himself in a little bit of hot water that he doesn't need to step into, where if, in all seriousness, like Trace and I, who does the show with me on Tons of UCF, we were walking around saying, well, without shirts and hats on that identify their school, could you pick coaches out? And Kyle Whittingham was one that I was like, I think so. Like, he's done so kind of anonymously, just sort of kind of been ho-hum, clock into work every day and to sort of build a strong program there at Utah. And I have a bit of a respect for that. I think Gundy's been a little bit more flashier about it. And as soon as he walks in the room, everyone's like, that's my Gundy. And there was no question about it. So I went Whittingham. Again, I just think he's been a little bit more just consistent throughout his time. And again, he's had some success at the bowl game level. But to your point, I'm not gonna pull hairs if someone says Gundy's the best coach in the Big 12. I think once and again, admittedly, this was fun for me, Phil, because I'm a newcomer to the Big 12, right? So when you gave me this assignment, I sat down, I was looking through I'm like, wow, like I knew Mike Gundy was good. I've always heard of Oklahoma State. I always know they're in the mix. But until your point, you sit down and go, wow, no losing seasons. Look at that. Huh, that's interesting. Like there are some things that I learned kind of doing this research that I hadn't really thought of before too. So I'm not going to split hairs with that either. But I do think Gundy and Whittingham, if either one of those two guys you're coached, you're probably going to be okay in college football.
It's wild that this is going to be the first time those two guys have faced off on the football
I know.
field.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. Like that start off Big 12 play.
Utah's already announced a coach in waiting. And so Kyle Whittingham made a comment at Media Day about, I don't know, a couple of years from now, he's like, I don't know if I'll be up here anymore. So to your point, there may not be too many more opportunities for this matchup to happen. So it'll be interesting to see how long that lasts, but they've already got a coach in waiting. That never goes well, by the way. So good luck to Utah on that piece, but they're already sort of thinking about succession planning. So who knows how long or Whittingham, will be around in the Big 12 coaching ranks.
I mean, we might get 1 year of him. I mean, if you're going to start naming coaches in waiting, like that's not something you do with I'm going to be here 10 more years. Like that's going to be interesting. Adam, I appreciate you tonight, man. This was a lot of fun. As you said, it was great to sit down. I mean, even for me to go through and it was a good way to kind of better familiarize myself with so many new head coaches joining the conference. Obviously, the corner four, Willie Fritz. I've known about Willie Fritz, paying attention to Tulane and what he's done there, but now joining Houston, better paying attention to Gus Malzahn. And so, like for me, it's eight schools who coaches. I feel like I've got a better understanding of now, and it gives you a better reflection of the programs and kind of how you should view the programs as an overall tiering. So, a lot of fun, man. You do a great job with the rest of the guys over there at Sons of UCF, but take this opportunity. Plug it all, make sure everyone knows exactly where to find the fantastic work you guys do covering UCF for the 10-12 network.
Yeah, a couple of spots. So our YouTube channel, which is at Sons of UCF, we've got a ton of videos. We're continuing to upload videos from our time at Media Day. So we have recaps, we have kind of snippets we've cut up. So check out the YouTube channel. We also have a myriad of podcasts also available in the audio form. So we do a live show, a regular podcast, and we have two other shows that are fronted by other folks on our network. A younger show by kind of a younger student base and sort of a more veteran present show. So check all those out again on our audio feeds, Sons of UCF, wherever you get your downloadable content. SonsofUCF.com is the website, and follow us on socials on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, Sons of UCF. And we're trying to grow Instagram, Philip. We're not the Instagram demo, but we're trying to grow Instagram. Actually, one of our guys is actually running Instagram for us now, which is great. So that's at Sons_of_UCF. So follow us on Instagram as well. And if you need UCF content, we'll got you covered. So
absolutely. All in one right there. All right, y'all. If you were watching us on YouTube, thank you so much for being here. Thanks to Truett Taylor, John Grove, JBaller54 for comments and chatting there. We would love that. Again, we're doing this ranking week all the way through Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow night for most important games of 2024. We've got 12 games we've got to talk about for me and at least one other guest. Should be two guests tomorrow. I'm not going to say anybody because as soon as you say something, everything falls through. That's how this works in podcast land. If you've listened to us, if you're listening to us in audio form, do us a favor, leave us 5 stars, leave us a review. We would really appreciate it. Make sure and like this video, subscribe to the channel. We'd appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day.
Sports Social Podcast Network.